What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Twins Latest. I'm Sam Calder. Hope you guys are all having a good day. We've got an action-packed episode for you guys. It's going to be a good one, and let's get things started with a new addition to the team. The Twins went out and claimed right-handed pitcher Jackson Kowar off waivers from Seattle. Kowar is coming off the best year of his career, but he only threw 17 innings. He finished with a 4.24 ERA and 15 strikeouts to 7 walks. Looking at the expected numbers, he was not eligible for any of the advanced metrics since he only threw 17 innings, but they were not good either way. He would have been comfortably below league average in just about every single metric aside from expected batting average allowed. He doesn't strike many guys out. He struggles with walks. He gives up his fair share of contact. His expected ERA was also at 5.16, which indicates he was nearly a full run better than he should have been last year. He technically throws 4 pitches. In reality, he threw really 2 pitches last year. His fastball and slider made up 94% of every single pitch he threw last year, with his changeup and sinker making up the last 6%. For reference, he threw a total of 15 changeups and a total of 4 sinkers across all of 2025. His slider is actually pretty darn good. It had a 124 stuff plus rating last year, with 100 being average. So 124 is pretty darn high. His changeup had a 123 stuff plus rating. So I'm not really sure why he only threw it 5% of the time. And historically, that's his best pitch. He threw it 36% of the time in 2023. So I would love to see him get somewhere right in the middle of those two numbers for 2026, right around 20 to 25%. Of all of his pitches I want to see be changeups. His fastball and sinker were both well below average by Stuff Plus. So just in general, more changeups, less fastballs this coming year. Kowar also comes with a history of arm injuries. He missed all of 2024 after getting Tommy John surgery, and then had some impingement in his throwing shoulder last year. That could have also been part of the reason he didn't throw more changeups. He currently projects as the long reliever in the Twins bullpen, according to Roster Resource. Frankly, I'd be shocked if that was his role. He may have a role in the bullpen, but he's probably more of a mid-relief kind of guy, the type of pitcher you send out in the 5th or the 6th after a rough day from your starting pitcher. My expectations for him are not high, but he definitely could have a role for the Twins at some point during 2026. But moving on from him, we've got a prospect deep dive, and I was thinking a little bit as I was doing these notes. We've only got about 2 weeks until spring training games, so I better start moving through these a little quicker. So for the next month or so, we will have a prospect deep dive every single day. We've covered Walker Jenkins, Connor Prelip, and Merrick Houston thus far. And I've said before, I'm not going in any particular order for these. But today's prospect is pitcher Adrian Bajorquez. He is not one of the Twins' top prospects by any means. Fangraphs has him as the Twins' number 24 prospect, but those haven't been revised at all since like October. So he certainly could have moved around a little bit. He's a 6'1", 190-pound right-handed pitcher, and he'll be 21 years old this season. Last year, across low A and high A, he threw 71 and a third innings with a 4.29 ERA and 85 strikeouts to just 31 walks. And he was actually a decent amount better at high single A last year compared to low single A. Granted, it was just 23 innings there, but he had a 3.52 ERA and 28 strikeouts to just 6 walks. I assume he'll probably start the year at high single A again, but will ideally be moved up to double A relatively early on. Ideally somewhere around June if he can be at double A, maybe July, sometime this summer. Looking at his profile, there's a lot that he does well, but nothing at like a super high elite level by any means. His fastball sits right around 94 to 95 miles an hour, although it's supposedly gotten up to 98 in game. He's got a nice curveball and a nice slider, also has a changeup. That's definitely his worst pitch at the moment. The one glaring thing that I'm seeing in his data, his first pitch strike percentage has been below 50% every single year at every single stop in the minors. And that may not sound like a big deal, but take it from a pitcher, it is. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but the difference it makes when you're working from an 0-1 count as a pitcher compared to a 1-0 count is huge. I looked up Shohei Ohtani splits while hitting in certain counts, and I just wanted to show how big of a difference first pitch strikes are. When he started an at-bat with a 1-0 count, so he got a first pitch ball, he hit 329 last year. When he started an at-bat down 0-1, he hit 227. It's a monumental difference when it comes to throwing first pitch strikes. So I would love to see him throw more of those this season, and that will get his strikeouts up even more. He was already at 10.7 strikeouts per 9 innings last year, which is a very, very solid number for a young pitcher. But first pitch strikes, that is the name of the game. Historically, he does not get a lot of ground balls. He had a 33.3% ground ball rate across both stops in the minors last year. At high A, though, again, that number was actually quite a bit better, up at 44.8% ground ball rate. That would have been right around the 60th percentile of all pitchers in the majors last year. I'd love to see him stick around a 40 to 45% ground ball rate compared to the 35% he's been at for most of his career. It's honestly pretty encouraging how much better he was at high single A compared to low single A. His batting average allowed on only balls put in play was 310 at high A, which is relatively high, but he only gave up 19 hits in 23 innings, and limiting the walks really saved him. His strikeout to walk ratio was at 4.67 to 1, which is outstanding. The biggest question I have at this point is, will he be a starter or a reliever full time? Because he appeared in 19 games last year. 14 of those were starts. I would assume that probably means he's trending towards being a starter, but with how much depth is in the Twins starting rotation across their farm system, a move to the bullpen could very well wind up happening. Once I see a top 30 team prospects list from like MLB Pipeline, I think they have one every year, I'll fill everyone in about how he might have jumped or who else might have jumped up or down in those rankings. But I kind of think we're going to see Bojorquez go from like number 24 on Fangraphs to the 15 to 20 range for the Twins. I'm really impressed by his numbers at high single A last year, and he's still very young. He'll only be 21 this year, like I mentioned. And I'm hoping to see him make that jump to double A sometime early this summer, ideally, like I said, because it would be really good for him to get some quality innings there this year in order for his career to further develop. But I'm curious to see if that small sample size at high A was just a fluke, or if he can continue to build on that into 2026. Moving on, I have expressed a lot of optimism around how I feel about the current state of the Twins roster, and I really feel like this could be a better team this year than people think. But I also want to look at all possible outcomes, and one of those outcomes is that things don't play out the way we hope. So I want to look at some things that I believe could be a reason the Twins season doesn't go well. The obvious one is the health, right? I don't need to say that. I mean, we've seen Byron Buxton miss a large chunk of the season, basically every single year of his career, outside of 2025. Royce Lewis hasn't been able to stay on the field. Pablo Lopez and Bailey Ober both had injuries last year. Joe Ryan did the year before. Luke Keyshaw has had his fair share of injuries. Safe to say that if the Twins don't stay healthy, which at this point would not be a shock, that is a very easy way to have a disappointing season. Another way I could see things going south is if the young guys you're banking on to step up just don't. And I don't mean prospects when I say that. The Twins season is not going to implode if Walker Jenkins has a slow start in the minors and isn't called up till September. That certainly wouldn't be ideal. I would love to see him in the majors sooner than that, but he wouldn't be the reason the Twins win only 70 games this year. I mean, like, if Luke Keyshaw isn't getting on base consistently, or Zebby Matthews has an ERA of 7 at the end of May. Because while we have high expectations for those guys, it's not a guarantee that they live up to them. Keyshaw could also get hurt. I mean, I just mentioned he's certainly got a track record of not staying healthy. So I think those two stepping up or not stepping up could play a really big role in how the season goes. Another way is if the bullpen is absolutely horrendous. I've talked extensively about my concerns for this group, and while I think it's certainly possible that we see a couple of starters get sent to the bullpen or the Twins make a couple of moves for it, this group does not have high expectations. If we're blowing multiple leads a week just because we can't get reliability from the bullpen, that is a very, very easy way that we could see things go south very quickly. One other thing that I could see derailing the Twins season is if the top of the batting order does not do their job. The current top 4 in the Twins' projected batting order goes Byron Buxton, Luke Keyshaw, Josh Bell, Matt Wallner. We've seen the ups and downs for both Buxton and Wallner. They're fantastic when they're hitting the ball well, but they are horrendous when they're slumping, especially Matt Wallner. I talked about Luke Keyshaw. He can't get hurt again or have a sophomore slump, which is a very common thing for, I shouldn't say very common, but we've seen that happen for young, talented players entering their second year. And as for Josh Bell, he hit the ball really well in Washington last year, better than his stats reflect, but he's going to need to hit higher than 237 this season. His expected batting average last year was at 256. I would be perfectly content with that. But if he's not getting on base, and neither are, two of the other three guys that I just mentioned at the top of the order, that's where things can get dicey offensively. But those are a few things that I could see going wrong for the Twins this year. But hey, let's hope they don't. That would be ideal. That'd be great. And then to wrap up the episode, as always, we've got our Twins player preview. And we've got our first bench player today. It is going to be Kody Clemens. And I intentionally did not include a position for him because he kind of played all over the place in 2025. Most of his innings came at first base and second base, but he also spent some time in the corner outfield, including 7 starts in right field and 5 in left field. Clemens was acquired from the Phillies last April in exchange for cash considerations, and he became a pretty impactful piece of the Twins lineup during the season. He only hit .216 with a .284 on base percentage, but he had 19 home runs and 35 total extra base hits. Looking at his expected numbers as well, he hit the ball much better than his surface level stats would indicate. His expected batting average was .243, and he made great contact. His hard hit percentage was in the 80th percentile among all hitters last year. He made hard contact on 48.3% of every ball he put in play, a very good mark. His average exit velocity was 91.5 miles per hour, which was in the 84th percentile of all hitters. And he was also an 86th percentile defender in terms of outs above average, which measures how many outs a certain player saved compared to an average defender. Byron Buxton was 81st percentile for outs above average, if that gives you any idea of just how good Clemens was in the field. My main concern with Kody Clemens, though, is that we saw his offense take a step back in the second half of the season. His batting average didn't really move. It went from 213 to 212, but he didn't draw as many walks, and he didn't generate nearly as much hard contact. His WRC plus in the first half of the year was at 117, with an MLB average hitter being 100. So he was a pretty comfortably above league average hitter for the first half of the year. Second half, though, that number dropped down, I should say, to 78, which is comfortably below league average. And I think that probably played a pretty big part in the Twins going out and signing Josh Bell this offseason, because the Twins publicly came out and said that Clemens was in line to be the starting first baseman, and then signed Bell like 2 weeks after saying that. Despite his batting average being basically identical to his first half batting average, his batting average on only balls put in play jumped up significantly from 206 to 248. That was while he was making worse contact as well. So those two things put together is definitely a little concerning for what his, not as ideal possible outcomes could look like. I think Clemens will largely be a late game pinch hitter / defensive substitution. He may get some starts here and there, but it's probably going to be when, Luke Keyshaw or Josh Bell goes down with an injury. I don't think he's going to be an everyday player, but if he has a great spring and he's hitting the ball well to start the year, that could all change and suddenly he is an everyday player, because defensively he's plenty good enough. We just need to see some strides offensively before he gets a lot of meaningful playing time in 2026. But that is going to do it for today's episode of Twins Latest. If you guys enjoyed it, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton. If you've got any Twins-related topics you want me to talk about in a future episode, please let me know down below in the comments. But thank you guys for watching, and until next time, I'm Sam Calder, and I'm out.